Hi everyone, Dr. Jason Plotsky here. What we're going to cover today are a few things in that chemical category. So if we back up just for a second, reviewing that idea about the blueprint, remember it's really about the lifestyle stressors that you go through, I go through every day that are going to take a toll on your body and therefore your health over time. So for us to have a massive impact on your overall health, we have to address all of these different categories. So what we're going to do today is talk about some in the chemical category. Now, for me, this is one of the biggest things that I like to teach people, also because it had a massive impact on my life. So remember, my dad was type 2 diabetic. His dad died of a heart attack at 55. My dad died at 62. I'm trying to change my, health destiny, right? And my heart health destiny. So interestingly enough, when I did all the research, around this topic, the idea about blood sugar, insulin control was really, prominent. So I've had to learn this stuff, not for just a random reason, because I have to follow this stuff very carefully in order for my energy levels to maintain optimum, for mental clarity. For me, this is a really easy way that I keep my weight, very manageable. It's helped me, the more I refine this, it also helped me lose belly fat and things like that. So this is really important. What I'm going to cover for you in these videos is basically a little bit about how insulin works in your body, how sugar affects insulin, and basically explain what the glycemic index is, and then some foods that we want to avoid, and definitely foods that we want to start adding into our diet. Okay, so let's start here. So basically, when you eat food, depending on the type of food you eat, so remember that you've got three parts or three macronutrients, let's say, right? So you've got proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So all of those, when they break down, will determine how much insulin is released as a counterbalance, okay? So basically, you eat food and your blood sugar will go up to a certain degree, depending on what you eat. Now, depending on how quickly that glycemic index is raised will determine how much insulin is released in your body. And basically, the job of insulin here, which is secreted from your pancreas, its job is to take sugar that's in the vessels and to put it inside the cell. So the way I explain this is always like insulin's part of the doorman. It's like a gatekeeper. So if your insulin system's healthy and working well, then you'll have normal blood sugar because it'll constantly be able to take the blood sugar out of the vessels and put it inside the cell to use it for energy. So you basically have these little receptors on your cells, insulin receptors. And so insulin will lock into here, and then it basically opens the door. Now, you can think of, if we just look at this for 1 second, that's the job of insulin. What the glycemic index is basically the speed at which things break down into sugar. So your blood sugar will, if you look at the glycemic index, if you eat foods that are what we call high glycemic, so these are often the sugars, the starches, the grains, things like that, corn, they raise your blood sugar quickly. So what happens is it forces your body to have a strong insulin response because your body really wants to have stable blood sugar. So what happens is it'll force it back down, okay? So if you eat something that's high glycemic, you have a strong insulin response, this will shoot down. Now, what's interesting is for some people, these swings in your blood sugar can also be like mood swings or energy swings. So a lot of people go through their day and they eat a sugary breakfast or they have a high carb breakfast, okay? It essentially does the same thing. It spikes the blood sugar, and then your body secretes insulin, and you have this, normalization of the blood sugar coming back down. Now, if you have a really strong insulin response, again, what happens is this gets low, your brain starts to reach for something. So we don't always reach for the best things when we're in these swings. We often will reach for the high carb or high sugar things. So what we really want to do, if you want to control your blood sugar, which you should want to do, and you want to control this variability of up and down, which I suggest you do, you have to start to choose foods that are what we call low carb, okay? Or eliminate sugar as much as you can from your diet. So when you eat something that's low carb, basically what happens is you have a different swing, right? So if you have a low carb foods, what happens through your day is you have very little fluctuation of your blood sugar. So that's basically what happens when you eat low carb. When you eat high carb, you basically are going through these swings all day long. And one of the things that we've been able to teach people is that if you can control that, if you start eating this way, it's going to be much more stable for your blood sugar. And you have to remember that these insulin spikes, okay, when your body's secreting insulin, insulin is a fat storage hormone. This is why this is so key if you're trying to lose belly fat specifically. So insulin is a fat storage hormone, which means every time you go through these big swings, you're secreting a lot of insulin. You're putting your body into fat storage, okay, instead of fat burning. And one of the things we're going to teach you is how to switch that around, okay? And I have a really in-depth course that teaches people how to do that, okay? We teach people in our Intro to Low Carb course basically how to reverse this. So there is a system that we've developed that you can do that. So these low carb foods, what would be examples of low carb foods? So what you can think of as these high carb foods, if you really want to keep this simple, think of this as your sugars and your starches. What do I mean? Hopefully you know what I mean by sugar. When I say starches, we're really thinking about the grains, right? One of the things we try and get people to do is to eliminate, if you had to eliminate one grain first, we would always say eliminate wheat first. Okay, wheat is probably the worst offender in this swing of glycemic index, even if it's whole wheat, right? There's very little difference on the glycemic index between white bread or whole wheat bread, very little. So wheat itself, it really creates a lot of these swings up and down, okay? So one of the things we tell people is try and get wheat out of your diet as a starting point. And it doesn't mean that you want to then fill your diet with gluten-free pastas, cereals, breads, all that. Okay, if you need substitutions, that's okay. But what we want to do is also teach you and help you understand that those are also still high carb. So a gluten-free bread is often made from potato starch, rice starch, those types of things, which are still really high glycemic. So do I eat, a lot of gluten-free bread? I don't, but do I let my kids? Absolutely, because it's a better choice. Okay, it's a better choice than wheat. For me, because I know I'm insulin resistant, I have to be really careful about how many swings I'll go up and down all the time. And then I use things like gluten-free products as a, once a week or, once every 2 week kind of thing for me, because I'm insulin resistant. You may not be insulin resistant. You may be able to tolerate those things better and maintain your perfect weight and your perfect waist size. So understanding this for me has been huge, not just in maintaining weight, but also in protecting myself from these big swings. So other low carb foods, what we want to think about, these things are fats and proteins. So particularly in the morning, okay, if you're going to choose a breakfast, if you choose a breakfast that's low carbohydrate, so for example, what would be some examples of a low carb breakfast? It would be a high fat smoothie. So you could use, blueberries, spinach. People will use like hemp seeds, flax seeds, things like that, healthy fats. They might put a protein powder in there. They might put a little bit of a healthy oil in there, like an MCT oil or a flax oil or something like that. Those would be all low carb type things. So if you consume that, your blood sugar is not going to spike up. If you have a smoothie that's full of bananas and pineapples and really sugary fruits, what'll happen is even though it might be, healthy, it could still create a big swing in your blood sugar, and then your insulin kicks in and 2 hours later, you're hungry again or you're tired again. So if you choose a low carb breakfast, what's going to happen is your energy is going to be sustained through the day. And in fact, they've done these studies where they say, okay, we'll keep the calories equal. So you both will eat 250 calories. You're going to eat toast and you're going to eat eggs. And the people that eat eggs in the morning, what happens is they make better choices all day long and they have less variability in their glycemic index all day long because they make better choices all day long. So one of the things we really want to clean up is breakfast, right? We really want to clean up breakfast. So you want to take out all of the high carb, sugar, and starches as you can out of your breakfast. So this was an evolution for us, right? We didn't all of a sudden go, okay, we're going to go 100% grain free or low carb. This took me literally years to kind of evolve to this point. But I can tell you there's probably 5 things that we would now recommend for breakfast for people. So number 1, we'll talk about intermittent fasting on another video, but breakfast idea number 1 is that you might skip breakfast 3 to 5 times a week and just in not consume any calories in the morning and let your body continue that fasting process. We'll go into details about that later. Number 2 could be eggs or omelet. So as long as you're not allergic or sensitive to eggs, you can have a couple eggs in the morning or make an omelet with some type of low carb vegetable like peppers and things like that. Onions, mushrooms are all low carb. Number 3, you might try a high fat smoothie that I mentioned. So this could be, you can use spinach and blueberries. You can use full fat coconut milk. You can put a protein powder in there. Some people put MCT oil in there. So basically you're trying to put healthy fats in right away. And when you put protein in the morning, what that's going to do, it basically will stabilize your blood sugar for a lot of the day. Then if you're really craving something kind of carby like a pancake or something like that, or waffles, there's recipes out there that are based out of almond flour or coconut flour. And so those are the 2 substitute flours that we really, you can use because they're high in fiber, but they're also low carb. So they're low glycemic. So there's lots of recipes. We'll try and get some out to you that are for breakfast type things. And what they do is they're not going to taste exactly like, other waffles or pancakes, but they're a pretty good substitute. And even if you put something else high fat on those, like an almond butter, it's another way that you can keep your glycemic index low. So one of your strategies in the morning is going to be, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff out because if I rock my mornings, I'm going to, rock the rest of my day. And if you need, ideas, those are the 5 things. Again, here they are. No breakfast, eggs or omelet, high-fat smoothie, or you can use coconut flour or almond flour in a recipe for things like pancakes. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you some snack ideas, and hopefully that helps you out.